All right. Hey, welcome back to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. So blessed that you would join us here today. Today is kind of fun. We've got our anchor leg for season 3. This is it. This is the last episode of 2022 before we kick off season 4. I really can't believe we're actually going into season 4. It's quite amazing. But it's only made possible by you, the listener. If you didn't listen, I don't record. And so we're just so thankful that you would be here today and join us for really a fantastic guest. I mean, these are always, I like every guest, but these are a little bit more special to me. Today, I have one of my teammates here. Help me welcome our track specialist, track sales rep here for our West Coast. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful, Mr. Robb Mathias. See, I knew I was going to screw that up. Robb, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for welcoming me to the podcast.
Absolutely, man. Glad you're here. We from time to time, we'll have one of our guests here. We've had River Morrow on the show. I say it like you don't know his last name. River on the show. We've had Jennifer and Brian. And, we interview guests, coaches, and different track people from around the world, really. And these are always a little bit more special because it's somebody I should know in and out. We've been teammates now for a year and a half, getting close to a year and a half. We've traveled together. But I just know that I'm going to learn more about you today by, putting you in the hot seat and asking you a bunch of questions. So, so I'm really looking forward to it, man.
Great. I'm excited to be on here.
Awesome. Well, Robb, you are a track sales rep for us here at Gill Athletics and oversee the west side of the country, right? So it's kind of we divide that by the Mississippi River.
That's right.
And all the way. So that's a pretty big territory. Before we get into kind of what you do here at Gill and how you serve coaches around the country, let's maybe take a step back and talk about your track background. You actually have quite a fascinating and in-depth and rich tradition in track. Where does track and field start for you in your life?
Well, it started sort of in grade school. So, I grew up in a small town at the small rural school district. And so most kids played ball sports. Well, once a year we had a field day, and one of the events was running the perimeter of the grade school. And from like third grade on, I would always be 1 or 2. And so then I thought when I can compete, I would want to do track and field.
Do you, now being older and wiser, do you know how far that was?
I think it was between 500 and 700 meters.
Yeah, that's pretty far I'm 46 and I don't want to run that far. So that's pretty far. Wow.
So then when I got into junior high, which for my school district was in 6th grade, you could begin competing. When I finally got to go out for track, just like everybody else, I thought, oh, I'm fast, so I should run the 100.
It does crack me up knowing you, though.
And so it didn't take me long to realize 100 I wasn't fast enough, or it wasn't long enough or something. So then slowly moving up until I finally landed on the 800.
Oh, nice. In middle school, you kind of found your event?
Yeah. So from pretty much 7th grade on, I ran the 800 and some of the mile.
Yeah. Was there a running culture in your family? Did mom or dad or aunts and uncles, were they on cross-country teams or track teams or anything?
No, my sister was 3 years older than I was, and she was a sprinter, and that's why I thought I would be good as a sprinter. And so she had been in junior high and ran track. And so my parents said, that's what you can do because we only want you to do one sport, and it's easy to pick you both up at the same time in the same place.
I got to make sure I tell my kids that. That's a good place. Smart parents for you. As you think about high school track and field, and you're doing the half mile, sometimes doing the mile, do you remember any coaches that had any kind of influence over you?
Well, yeah, it would actually go back to my first coaching experience. He was the junior high science teacher. He was very stoic and very disciplined, and a lot of kids didn't like him, but I really took to it because he was no nonsense, matter of fact, and had some great training methods in terms of teaching drills and form stuff. And so and then not so much in high school. He was the football coach as well. And so he had experience with throws. So that was kind of where he spent more of his time. So it just was go out and run basically for a middle distance runner.
So you liked that kind of structure, I'm almost call it rigid type of coaching?
Yeah, you just knew where you stood and you knew what you needed to accomplish.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you said he was, a football coach and kind of a thrower side. and you mentioned that you liked his training philosophy. That might be my words. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you know, was he doing clinics and things like that back then? I mean, this is a different time and era for both, we're kind of the same age-ish. There wasn't YouTube. There weren't very many clinics and things like that for us to go to. Not as easy as it is today. Do you remember him doing anything like that?
Coaching education for him probably was first football and then secondarily track and field, but I don't know what opportunities were available in that area.
Certainly. And where you say area, where are we?
Up south of Decatur.
Here in Illinois. Yeah. Okay. All right. Small town, you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
The town's called Macon. It's probably got 1,400 people in it. So
is that Macon Forsyth? That sounds
now it's Meridian.
Okay.
So it's Macon and Blue Mound, or the school district now.
All right, cool. And as you were going through high school, the half mile, it's an interesting event, and we have another half miler here in our team as well, right? Scott Phelps, who was our sales manager, and we love him to death. It's kind of that odd tweener, right? And not that we talk about the X's and O's, but were you more of in his style of coaching, more of a distance? Like, were you doing 30, 40, 50 miles a week, or were you more speed based in your training?
More speed based. I thought a long run was 4 miles.
Yeah. Well, that it is actually, for my philosophy, that is absolutely a long run. Yeah. So you were more speed, like quarter repeats and.
Yeah. 400s, 200s, up to probably repeat 800s, but we never did repeat miles or thousands.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And as you think about that time, and what was coach's name?
It was Coach Gatchell.
Coach Gatchell. Can you remember, putting you on the spot here a little bit, just a funny story? I love football coaches who were track coaches, especially football coaches who were doing non-typical football track events, right? So non-sprints and throws and things like that. Do you remember a time like, just a funny time or a fun story or workout that you guys had with Coach?
Well, one interesting workout that he did. So in the spring, early on, so the distance runners would run the section from the school because it was a farmland. That's how it's laid out, square miles. And so then they would take the sprinters out there to the halfway of the section road, and they would have to run back to school through the cornfield. So just high knees all the way across the rows.
Like full rows of corn.
Yeah, well, they weren't planted yet. But
okay, but it's all uneven.
Yes. And it would be a wet, muddy day too. So they would come back totally muddy.
Was that something they look forward to, or was this kind of like...
No, they dreaded it.
Okay, it's like punishment.
It would be much easier to run the section.
Did you guys just look and be like, yeah, that's what you get?
Well, I mean, it wasn't all bad. They got at least a ride halfway out there.
See, now that is a distance runner's mentality. It's like, well, I had to run out there to get back. I love it. I love it. Well, as you went through high school and running the half mile and occasionally the mile, what were you thinking career-wise and college-wise? What was kind of the next step you thought you had in your head?
Well, I had hoped to run, well enough to do well at sectionals and qualify for state so that I could try to run collegiately. And so I was always just a little off on being that first or second person at sectionals and didn't make it to state, but did have an opportunity to run collegiately at Parkland College in Champaign here when they had a track team.
The Cobras.
Yes, correct.
There's rattlesnakes or Cobras. Yeah. And they had a great tradition, sadly dropped their program probably around 02, 03.
Yeah. They did have a good program and a really interesting coach who was there when I was there, who was kind of instrumental in what got me thinking more about, participating and more into coaching track and field. He had some very interesting catchphrases and a really unique personality.
Who was that?
That was Ron Boss.
I know the name.
USATF now has a education award that they've named posthumously after him.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say, I knew that name from somewhere. Yeah. Parkland was super interesting, and being here in Champaign County, I can't believe we haven't gotten track back there at Parkland. But I remember when I was at Troy University, we recruited a couple of kids, a couple of hurdlers off of, we didn't get them, but recruited from Parkland. That's how I kind of learned about Parkland and kind of the history and tradition there. What was wrong? You said some catchphrases, so I'm going to ask, what were some of the, and remember, we don't edit, so let's not, because there's going to be some fun catchphrases there. But what are the child-proof catchphrases?
Don't the whiskey, the hay is in the barn. And then his start stop was like a seal call that went like, "Arr!"
Really?
He didn't have a gun, didn't have a clap, didn't have anything. It was just this weird seal-like sound when it was time to go. Oh, the other thing was in between intervals, he'd be like, on the line, feeling fine, even though you hadn't recovered from the last one yet. You were
No matter
not
what,
fine.
you were fine.
Yeah, you were not fine and ready to get back on the line.
I said you're up, so you're fine. Let's go.
Pretty much.
So, because it's in my hobby area, what I don't understand, I mean, I kind of understand it, but what was the connection to track with "Don't Tinkle in the Whiskey"?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, all right.
We'd have these meetings before practices and these phrases would come out. And then his other favorite thing, if he didn't think you were running well enough, was he would tell you about his most recent recruiting trip and how much faster everybody that he was recruiting was than you.
That's borderline mental abuse.
And then the other thing was, if you think you didn't trust what he was saying, he would always say, at a junior college, there's only freshmen, sophomores. So he would say, ask the sophomores. They were so wise and so experienced. You asked them because they knew everything.
The 19-year-olds.
Exactly.
Well, I'm gonna have to get to the bottom of that. Don't tinkle in the whiskey.
Yeah, that must be
I'm
a
not
Southern
sure.
expression. He was from the St. Louis area, so I don't know.
It's so precious that you think St. Louis is Southern area, Southern Illinois,
Southern
Okay, yeah,
Southern
yeah.
part of Illinois.
I was like, you're talking to the Alabama guy, man. I'm like, come on, we got to keep going south. Well, if I've never heard that expression, and I'm wondering, was tinkle not really the word he said?
No, he did.
Oh, okay, because whiskey, it could have been another. That's what I was wondering. Okay, well, if you know that saying, hit me up on Twitter at Mike Cunningham, because I really want to know. I've never heard that in track and field. I've heard the hay in the barn and those kind of things, but that's awesome. Well, Ron, what a great name, and pretty special to be coached by him. You mentioned that kind of started like, oh, well, maybe I should be in this. I'm gonna call it industry, but whether it's a coach or now as a working for Gill Athletics, that kind of sparked like, man, I kind of want to stay in this sport in some form or fashion.
Yeah. So there at Parkland, Coach was an instructor for USATF level 1. So he took what was typically a weekend class and made it into a full semester. And so then, we had a lot more hands-on with the various, javelin and the various grips and all that. We would just go out and have lab and go out to the track, So anyway, I got my USATF level 1 after that. I moved on to Illinois State, and then I minored in coaching education. And got to meet Joyce Keefe, which was the women's coach there at Illinois State for many, many years. She had retired at this point in time and was just faculty. But man, she was incredible in not just technique and tactics for coaching, but the big picture of creating a budget and a travel plan and all of the administrative things that many coaches don't enjoy.
Oh, wow. So you got a pretty early look at real coaching. What I mean by that is some people think coaching is just standing there with a whistle or standing at the sand pit having fun with the jumpers. It's all encompassing. With your high school or college, you're doing a budget, you're scheduling, you're recruiting, etc. You got a pretty early look at that.
Yeah, because she was just so experienced, and so she passed that on to us and in the class. So yeah.
And you got your level 1 back then. What year would that have been?
That would have been probably 94, maybe.
Man, Rob, if we would have had taken a bet on who got our level 1s first, I would have lost, because I would have said, well, I've been in coaching forever, you beat me by a good 3-4 years, man. Holy cow. And he taught through a semester, not a weekend like
it is today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's super interesting, man. So obviously you have Ron Buss as a junior college coach and teacher, and you get your level 1. You go to Illinois State and you're running, and Joyce Keefe. So obviously you became a coach once you graduated.
Well, even before. So my last semester, I had an opportunity to coach at a parochial school in Bloomington, a junior high middle school, to help coach there. And so I was able to assemble a staff and coach for that last semester of college.
Well, Coach Mathias, tell us how that went.
It went okay. We had a couple, it was a small parochial school and they didn't have any facilities. In fact, one of the biggest coaching challenges was walking 30 middle school kids across 4 lanes of highway to get them to Illinois Wesleyan's track to practice.
That seems like a liability, because I can just see the little ducklings.
Oh, it was, again, to get them there and back was the biggest challenge of practice.
That was success right there.
Yes, that was success. If we started and ended the practice with the same number of kids.
Counting off 30. Wait a minute, we had 31. Where's Johnny? Oh man, and that was middle school you were coaching?
Yes, yeah.
Coaching collegiate kids is tough enough, 18 to 22-year-olds. I had a few years experience coaching high school, 14 to 18-year-olds. I can't imagine coaching middle schoolers. How tough was that?
It's like herding cats.
Yeah, across a 4-lane highway, by the way.
Yes.
What do you remember about, because the younger you go, though, I think kind of the more precious as well. Big general swath here. They seem to have more fun and maybe appreciate the coaches a little bit more. Not saying that high schoolers don't or collegiate kids don't, they're just bright, wide-eyed 11 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah, no, I think they're a little bit more bought in. I mean, what coach says, they're willing to try and not think that they know better because they've done it, a certain way for a period of
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, they don't have that experience. Yeah. Good. That's a good point.
And they had some, talented kids who pointed in the right direction, maybe encouraging not everyone to be a sprinter. We got some results. We had a pretty good 800-meter runner. We had some good hurdlers, a couple good throwers. So it was rewarding to see.
And the younger you go, the more attention to fun you have to have. It needs to be fun even as a collegiate senior, but the younger you go, you got to keep it games and
Jim Acklin, who coached for many years out at St. Joe. There was a book that was a book of running games, and he had a few in there, and so things like that really make a difference in practice for that age group of kids.
I feel like I remember that book.
I can't remember the title of it, but yeah, I don't think I know he had contributed to it. I don't think he was the sole author of it.
I would say it was a book about games for track and field or cross country, maybe specifically. Yeah. I remember when I coached at De La Salle in Chicago, I remember a book I remember I was a big book collector and reader, anything I could get my hands on. And I think I remember that because it was something, there was like some balloon relays that were in there as well, water balloons.
Yes, absolutely.
That book. That's really cool, man. I don't know what happened to my book collection. I moved too many times.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
So did you continue into coaching, or what did you do?
So after that, I had an opportunity to coach at a track club here in Champaign County called the Illini Heat.
Yeah.
And I was the distance coach for that, and really good. Club level. Usually you have kids that have really bought in, and so particularly so on the young women's side. So there was some 11 to 14-year-old girls that were mostly from school around this area called Muhammad, which is well known for their track and field programs and cross country anyway. But this group of young women worked really hard. I remember that first year Millikan University hosted the Adidas National, and these young women were able to win the 4x8. Wow. So it was really exciting.
And I told you I'd learned something new. I didn't know we were Illini Heat coaching alums.
Yes.
When I first moved here, Morris's I said, hey, will you want to come coach? And I did it early in the morning, and that was the summer. I coached at Muhammad Seymour High School in the mornings, and then that summer worked with the Illini Heat. And I, God bless club coaches and younger coach. I couldn't do it. I'm just not strong enough.
Meets take a long time.
That was it. No, Rob. So practice was fine. It was great working with these kids. Although one time I had this little hurdler, this little boy, and I'm doing my hurdle thing. So he's tiny anyway. I don't know how old, but he wasn't even. Maybe he was middle school, but I don't think so. Definitely not high school. So, I had the hurdles down. In fact, I had him tipped over because he was so young, right? And we're learning 3-stepping all the way through. And his dad's just hanging out on the fence, and it was all good, right? And the second day, third day, or whatever. And by the fourth day, the dad looks at me and goes, you ever going to move those hurdles up? And it was one of the only times that I thought, I really need to big time this guy. Like, he has no idea who I am or who I was maybe at that point, coaching and who I've coached. And I was just like, we're good. And I was like, man, don't do this to me, man. Just don't make me be that guy. Come on, just go away. And then we went to our first meet just up the road, Morton or something, 57, right? And so I go over to the long jump pit, and no one's raking. So I rake. And Rob, 4 hours later, and maybe 5, I'm still raking for the long jump. We haven't even got to the triple jump.
Yeah, I can remember when we hosted a meet at the University of Illinois. It was a 14-hour day because it was so warm. They started the longer distance races at 7:30 in the morning, and we were still cleaning up and closing things down at 7:30 at night, plus a little more time than that. I have so much respect for club coaches and club officials and club participants. Those kids are there, and club moms and dads. It's just not for me. I just can't do it. I'm also the guy who doesn't necessarily like the college meet that starts at 7 a.m. and goes to 10 p.m. I've been to plenty of those as well. Not a fan. We need to figure out my opinion, need to figure out how to shorten these things up.
That was my diet. I'll step off my my soapbox for that. I barely got into it. I'm proud of myself. I usually get into that one a little bit longer there. So keep going. What you coached, and what else did we start doing career wise?
So I was managing a running store here in the Champaign area and coaching there both at the club level and then at the middle school for a school here south of town, Tolono Unity at the junior high. And so first day of practice, it was a hot August day and there were 3 kids. And I thought, oh, what's this season going to be like? Well, it grew a little bit more than that, but one of those kids that was there that first day also qualified for state and became an all-stater.
Wow.
So
yeah, what's harder than coaching 30 kids? 3. Honestly, that's really tough. Yeah. And he ended up having that much success.
yes,
A way to not give up on it. I mean, meaning not necessarily him individually, but if you have 3 and it's cross country, so you need at least 5, and you need 7, and you want 10 to 12 and more. You easily could have kind of checked out and said, well, we'll just I'll recruit the hallways until next year. But you kept at it and kept going. Did you see yourself? What inspiration? Where'd that come from? Where did kind of that? Hey, 3 kids or 300? I'm gonna.
well, I had just felt like I've gotten so much from the sport in my as an athlete when participating, and I just wanted to give back. And so, if there were kids that were interested, I was going to give them my full attention. And it was very difficult because the way it had been set up, the coach previous was the guidance counselor there. And so in order to make it work for her, they practiced at 6:20 in the morning. So
what grade was this?
This was 6th through 8th grade.
And they were 6:30 in the morning.
Yes.
So you changed that?
No, we kept it the same.
These poor kids.
Well, they were used to it. And then the other thing in that small school, football is huge. So then the boys could do both. They could do cross country, and then they could do Pee-wee football in the evening at practices at like 6 o'clock at night.
Man, I didn't know you were that tough. You a tough coach. This goes back to your football coach in your junior high days. You're like, we are going to be disciplined. We are going to be on time. We're going to do it. Man, that's tough. I'm glad I'm not on your team. I'm glad you're not a coach. I'm not an athlete for you, man. I couldn't have made it. I'd be like 6:30. 8:30 looks just as good, right, Coach? Well, one of the interesting things about you, and many of them is the different kind of stages you've had in your career. How did you? Because I know you don't stay in this area for your entire career. Where do we go? Because you went to Colorado and military. Tell me, where does this come in? I thought we'd hit this by now.
Oh, well, so yeah, I mean, it wasn't quite as linear as I made it. So yeah, after coaching my first coaching gig at the middle school in Bloomington, I graduated. I moved out to Colorado for a 6-month stint. Found it was beautiful, but you couldn't eat beautiful out there so it was just expensive to live. I mean, the price of living as compared to the wage you made, I mean, I went out there to climb and mountain bike and be part of the whole outdoor scene. And it was just too expensive to get to do any of that. But in that brief period of time, I did get to connect with the coach and help coach out there at the North Platte River Rehab Club, because Colorado doesn't really have indoors. And that really exposed me to one of probably the most interesting meets and coaching clinics, which is the Simplot Games out at Pocatello. The coaching clinics and the professionals they have out there leading those are phenomenal. And it kind of, I was just saying, it kind of serves as a national for the West because like I say, the high schools don't have indoors in Colorado.
And I know of Simplot as the great meet and everything. It's quite amazing how many kids they do. And I hate to say nothing fancy, but the track's been there forever, but they get it done. In fact, one of the kids that I signed at Mississippi State set the national indoor 400-meter record at Simplot Games. I did not know that there's a coaching clinic component.
Yeah, it was part of the meet. Yeah.
Does that still go on?
I'm not sure. Yeah. I mean, it's been years since I've been out there, but it did at that point in time. And we're talking about middle 90s. So
okay, yeah.
Who knows what's changed? But
that's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah. It used to be a bigger deal than I think it is today, because to your point, there were less indoor facilities back then as well. Now, thankfully, there's a lot of indoor facilities. Still, we're missing a few out west. We need to have more out west, but nationally, there are a lot more indoor facilities of high quality today. But Simplot used to be the meet, especially for that high school meet, man. The Simplot Games was famous. I mean, I remember in Alabama waiting to read the results from it. It was such a big deal. And not that we had indoor track Alabama. We used to race in a horse barn in Alabama. No lie. Yeah, I'll tell you that story one day.
Sounds interesting.
Yes, it was amazing. Yeah. So, what were you doing out in Colorado? You were working for that clinic. What else were you doing?
I was a reporter. My bachelor's was in mass communication, so I was working at a chain of newspapers that was just north of the Denver metro area, and so they were published twice a week, and so I had to produce 8 to 15 pieces for the paper on a weekly basis.
That's interesting. Why didn't you stick with that career? I'm a journalism major as well, so
so like I say, out there the economics didn't make it work for me, and then I came back to Illinois and was able to get in the paper industry for a few years. But it's just the small papers, which I really enjoyed because you get to wear basically all the hats other than the display advertising. It just took too much time, even with the all the computer upgrades for pagination and things like that. A production day after gathering the news all day would take you into the 8-9 o'clock at night, and then news doesn't wait till you've taken your comp time, and so then you have to cover news when it breaks, and so it's just a stressful long day and not conducive to raising a family.
Right, and not getting compensated for it miserably as well.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah,
yes.
That makes a lot of sense there. And where does military life come in for you?
Well, so I joined the National Guard when I was a junior in high school. So it was a 6-year commitment. So I started, like I say, in as a junior, and that went till a couple of years till I got out of college, and so I had some really interesting experiences there. I was deployed to Germany and Hungary. Did an annual training camp in Panama for 2 weeks one year. And so, yeah, I had a lot of good opportunities, and it was a convenient way to, pay for my school and not have to rely on an athletic scholarship. If I thought, actually, once I got started in it, if it didn't work out, then you still got to do it because you need to get school paid for.
You live a much more interesting life than me, friend. Germany and Panama. What did you experience any kind of track component when you were overseas?
Not much, other than that the German culture was pretty active, and so whether it be hiking or running, they would have public areas to do that, what they call like a garden. The garden plots was the name of it, and you would just see runners all the time. And so then I met up with them a couple times and found the routes in the area and was able to run with some German guys.
Never got to go to like a track meet over there or anything?
We did take a trip. We worked in Berlin and Neuschwanstein, so we did get to see the Olympic Stadium. So yes, wow. In Berlin.
How was that?
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, that's it was a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my, to be able to see where the history.
Yeah, it just made it that much more real,
Yeah, that's really cool. That's so interesting, because we can talk about having seen a documentary on it or the pictures from or a video from it. You've been there.
Yeah,
that's so cool. That's really interesting. So how did you get back here to Illinois? And you mentioned working for the running store. Talk more about that as well, because that's a big part of your professional life.
Yeah. So once my deployment finished, my wife said, "You got to get out. We're not going to do this again if we're going to start a family." I'm like, "Oh, I kind of liked Europe and thought we might try to figure a way to go back." So anyway, I listened to my wife, which was one of the few times. I'm not 25 years of marriage, and it still isn't my strong suit. But anyway,
I get it on record now. If she ever wants to, if you ever listen to me, like, no, I put this on wax. I put this on the podcast. I listen to you, Ken. Yeah.
So I got out of the military. She got tired of those long production days, and it just wasn't enough money. And so then we looked for something different. I got in touch with my athletic background again, and just on a whim went to the running store one day and said, "Are you guys hiring?" And they said, "Actually, we are. We just had someone leave, and we're looking for a full-time position, but we'll search out part-time and see how it goes from there."
What if you wouldn't have gone into that running store, man?
Exactly. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have had an account for the last 20 plus years of my life, or at least not consistently in one place.
Right. I did not know it was that kind of what's the serendipitous, I think it is. Like, oh, I just, I was like, that'd be cool. And they happen to be, I mean, how many places could you have gone into that said, "Yeah, we're not hiring, thanks, but no thing," and they were. And then they took a chance on you.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah. So talk to us about, I don't know that we've ever had anybody who's worked in a running store before, and it's for as long as you did as well. Tell us about the nuances of a running store. So we maybe all have been to one. Even I have been to one, Rob. So we know that, the different selections of shoes, but I don't really know what the people who work there do necessarily as compared to someone who works for a Walmart, Target, etc.
Well, I mean, it's just a lot about customer service from the start. When someone comes in, they're there because they want to get shoes, but then you need to know more about, what type of running they're doing, what their experience is, what their injury level have been, and then, try to do a mini gait analysis to help them pick out a category of shoes that would work for them, and then let them try them on and run around the store, run on the treadmill in the store, or run out on the parking lot in front of the store to kind of get a feel for the shoes.
And when you say a category of shoes, are you talking about, I don't feel like you're talking about brand name. I think you're talking more about like thin running shoes. Now we have thick. I don't know if we had them back then.
Yeah, right. So yeah, just across the gamut, whether the person's foot would dictate to have a neutral shoe, a stability shoe, if they're looking for a racing flat, if they're interested in the more minimal shoes, if they want a maximum shoe in the rocker. So yeah, it's just kind of what their interests are and then what would work with their foot.
And what did you do? How did you learn that? What did you do for, I'll call it coaching education, but running education as it compares to footwear?
Well, I mean, I think some of it just helped that I had the background and experience. So I had picked out shoes for myself for years. And then, I can't think of his name. It used to be up at Lewis University. He used to write the shoe reviews for Runner's World.
Not Galloway.
No, it was Tom Brunick, I think was his name.
Jeff Galloway,
and he coached up there as well. But our store had a connection to him. And so then I just started reading all of those, for year after year's reviews until I kind of learned the nuances of shoes and the anatomy of a shoe and then the anatomy of a foot from my experience in my coaching minor, where we had to go through anatomy and physiology. And so it just all kind of came together.
When I was running poorly, I always racing flats. That's what I was trying to think of when I was talking about thin shoes, right? So I did a lot of racing flats because I bought it. It was during the Michael Johnson era, right? So the lightest shoe possible, those kind of things. So I was like, well, if I'm going to run half mile, etc., I'm going to be in racing flats no matter what. I don't remember that this was a thing back then, and it seems like more recent. Now we have, from the Hokas and even the new Nikes and Adidas and stuff, we have these big, thick heel type shoes. How have you seen that change buying patterns or even stride pattern? Anything? Has that actually worked going to this thick side or what?
Well, so just to back up a little bit, prior to the thick oversized shoes were the minimal shoes, the 5-finger, and that was a fad for a while. And I think it helped a lot of podiatrists buy a second home, and a lot of runners decide maybe running wasn't for them.
Are you talking about the Vibram 5-finger?
Yes.
Okay, first of all, they went to a lawsuit and the whole thing. That was hilarious. But our own teammate, who we've had on the podcast here, Brian Carell, used to wear Vibram 5-fingers to work. And I used to make fun of him every time I could. I mean, it was just like, first of all, we're in an office. What are you doing? But those things were, they were a joke, right? Like they weren't.
Well, I think there needed to be more education sold along with a pair of shoes. But it's just like any fad. It just kind of takes on a life of its own, and then it goes to its peak and then bottoms out, And then in its place came the maximum shoe, which like we just talked about, Hoka. But I mean, the important thing in the running industry with both of those, and what kind of seem extreme, is the value of form. Form is the thing that's going to help you run the longest and be the most successful. And the shoe is a tool in your toolbox to do it with.
Form of the shoe or the form of the run?
Running form.
Got it. Yeah. So you've got to make up for any deficiencies or multiply any positives you have in the form side of what you run.
Yeah, I mean, the more that you run, the more efficient you become. But there are certain ideas of what good form is, and the closer to emulating those are, the more healthy you're going to be through your running career.
Awesome. That's enough distance running shoes for me, buddy. I'm not a shoe guy. You always have a good shoe game. and not even like tennis shoe type, shoe. You have good shoes, man. I guess that's what happens when you work for a shoe company. And tell us the name of the running store, because they're awesome. We love these guys.
It's Body and Soul Sports.
Yeah, they have been around. I don't know how long they've been here in the Champaign.
About 40 years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
They were big. I don't know if it was their ownership, but they were a big part of and maybe still are a big part of the Champaign Marathon and series that we have here in.
Yeah, no, they're still really tied into that.
Yeah,
stuff.
They do a great job. And, that Champaign Marathon's actually pretty young. I remember when they were starting it, because they came to us and we did race clocks for them along the course and stuff. My wife ran the 10K as part of the series there and everything. So shout out to Body and Soul. They do a great job. They do a really, really great job. Great resource, definitely, for our runners and not only what I'm gonna call our competitive runners, or any high school kids that are on the teams here, collegiates that come back, things like that, but for our just general, I hate to say it, old guy, me and you, community out there. They do a great job. So that's really cool. Love those guys. So that's all well and good, Rob. I mean, it's awesome to hear about, some of the coaching experience you had, some personal experiences that you've had, and even your professional life with Body and Soul. How in the heck did you get here to Gill Athletics?
Well, so I was just looking for something. Well, I guess it's a lot of what's dictated my career choices has been my family, from those long production days that didn't work for as a newlywed, to being involved in retail and having to work the weekends and not be able to watch my kids run their cross country and track meets. So I was looking for something that would give me that opportunity. And I had known David and Steve. David was a customer. Steve, I think I met at a sporting goods trade show, and we're like, oh, they're from Champaign, we're from Champaign. And so we just stopped at the booth and talked to him for a while. I had some coworkers and some acquaintances that had worked at Gill. And so then I just took a chance.
Wow. And, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question. You get two beautiful children who are superstars, my friend, in the running community. They are awesome. Did your wife, was she a runner at all?
My wife was a tennis player.
Is that right?
Yeah. And so when we were dating and then early in our marriage, the only way that I could beat her is if I was in good enough shape, because she would make me go all over the court and she could control the ball. And so
she was legit. She wasn't just getting it back over. She was placing it.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Did the kids ever express any tennis interest?
We didn't do tennis with them. They've done basketball, they've done soccer, and then they kind of found their niche in distance running.
Does she like running at all? Or she's like, yeah, you guys go do your thing?
She's not opposed to running. I think she, like most track parents, are opposed to the weather in Central Illinois during the track season. It's hard to cheer your kids on when you have chattering teeth and you're shaking and trying to keep warm.
Yeah, that sounds like me post run, by the way. Teeth chattering. Well, I was just thinking, as I've met your wife several times now, and she's like the most awesome person. I watched you guys at the Christmas party that we had recently, and as we had a lot of couples there. I didn't see any two more couples working together more than you two, man. I just thought you guys were right across from us on the other couch, and I was just like, man, those guys were meant to be together. It was really cool to see. So I didn't know if she was a runner. Most of the time it's not. I shouldn't say most of the time. A lot of times it's not. It's someone who's has a wholly different interest, and you guys create new people who have interest, like the two kids that you have now, man. So it was really cool to see. You guys do a great job. So you knew David, our CEO here, Steve, our VP of sales, through different trade shows and stuff like that. And then you got here to Gill, man. What was that like?
Well, I really enjoyed it. It was, Scott, I remember waiting on him and fitting him for shoes when I was at the running store.
Is that right?
And it was really
Scott Phelps.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it was really exciting. There's a well-known coach in the area, and he also does the announcing for the University of Illinois track meets. When Scott broke his school record, because they went to the same school.
Really? Who was that?
That was Dyke Steerett.
Okay, I don't know if I know that name. I didn't know Scott was a customer of yours. That's so. What a community, man. I missed out by not growing up here. I swear. That's
well, awesome. I mean, you're right. It's a really unique place, particularly for runners, and yeah.
That's really cool. So tell us, what do you do, Rob? What do you do here, man? What do you do here at Gill Athletics?
Well, I mean, it's just part of our mission, to empowering coaches so they don't have to worry about their equipment. So it's advising coaches and the sporting goods dealers that the coaches work with to help them get the best equipment that they can for their programs with the budgets that they have.
So I think there's a lot of whether it's misconception or just I have no clue what people at Gill do. I mean, they maybe kind of know that we're manufacturers. So, 90% of everything they see in the catalog is made right across that wall that we have here. But I don't know that they necessarily know what does a Robb Mathias do on a daily basis? And no day is average. I realize that. So it's kind of a tough question, but what's an average day for you?
Well, I mean, before we talk about that, I think the one thing that I think is the coolest is just like you said, that not everybody realizes that here in Champaign, in the middle of these cornfields, that we're manufacturing a majority of this equipment. It's not coming from overseas. We have people that are citizens of this community making this equipment. And then the other cool thing is, I'm just steps away from going back to where the product is made to get a question answered for a customer. If they're like, well, how does this part work? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Let me just go grab one and find out. So it's really cool. I mean, those are the superstars to me, are the people in the factory that are building this stuff. Because if they didn't build it, I couldn't sell it.
I always tell people, it's, to me, and part of it is I don't have the brain to put things together kind of stuff. But it's like voodoo magic to me. We'll bring in sticks of steel and aluminum, they cut it, they weld it, they paint it, and voila, there's a pole vault standard. I'm like, well, I couldn't visualize how that happened. And these guys and gals do it daily, from pole vault standards to hurdles to our basketball and volleyball side. It really is like it's Willy Wonka's chocolate factory out there, right?
Well, again, and you say, what does a day in the life look like? Well, one of the things that we get to do is bring guests through and let them see what that looks like behind the scenes. So, and every time we do, these dealers are just over the moon about how incredible, just what Mike was describing there, how that stuff all comes together in our factory. So that's one thing that we do. So the other things that we do are answer questions about product and make recommendations, and then we have an opportunity when it's not in season. So when it's not January to June, where we can go out and meet dealers and meet coaches. And so we get to go to trade shows and make connections there.
And you recently were at one of our largest trade show, sporting good industry type thing, our NFHS athletic directors convention in Nashville.
Yeah, no, that was really good because you get to be right face to face with the decision makers. They know what their budget is. They know what their priorities are. And when they come over to talk to you, it's because they are interested in what you can do for their facility. And so it's a really great dialogue, to say, oh, tell me about your facilities. What do you like? What don't you like? What is your next project? And just kind of steer and guide them to the right dealers that can help get them the right products at the best value for their school.
You went last year to NFHS.
Yeah, so this is my second year.
I've been to a couple, and I've always been a little bit to what you were just saying there. The athletic directors, specifically, I think athletic directors around the country, but specifically the ones that are going to the convention, boy, they are tuned in to track and field. I think sometimes athletic directors get a bad rap that they're only concerned about football and basketball, maybe baseball, and then everything else, tennis and track and what have you, is wherever it's 10th on the list, right? But I'm really always amazed. I wanted to get your take on it. The athletic directors that I've spoken to, they really care. They know that the track and field team, whether it has 10 people or 100 people, it's a part of their athletic. These athletic directors care about their athletic department, not necessarily one and only one sport. What was your experience?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think it's about the facility as a whole. And I mean, they have to break it up sport by sport and dedicate a certain amount of resources to it. But I mean, yeah, they want a really nice facility overall, and they want it to represent their school and their community. And if they have the budget, they're going to spend the money to get what they can, the best equipment they can afford.
And what is the you've done that, and you've done some other things where there's trade shows, and we're going to talk about NCAA's here in a second. What is the funnest thing that you've been able to do here? You've been with us almost a year and a half. We're getting close to that. What's, as you look back on a year and a half, which, rookie season, I mean, it's awesome to see that. What's been like maybe a fun thing that you didn't know was part of the job? Like, oh man, I get to do X, or I got to meet someone. What's
well, yeah, that's just it, is to meet elite athletes who have, vaulted on our poles. This summer, we had the opportunity to host the 2009 Women's World.
Anna Rogowska, that's
yes.
right. I forgot Anna was
and so
here.
to go out to dinner with her, and then to look down the table and say, that's the guy that made the pole that made you successful, and have that all, tied up in a neat bow all there at dinner.
Isn't that cool? I mean, that would be the equivalent when you were 100% running shoes of going to meet like a Tinker Hatfield at Nike, you know, a major designer for shoes, and be like, holy crap, you designed the shoes that Michael Johnson wore. And I mean, and have Michael Johnson there, by the way, because we had Anna here. You're right. That's amazing.
Oh, it was great. It was probably once in a lifetime experience.
Do you ever get like surreal moments like, what in the world? What am I doing here, man? There's Anna Rogowska. There's the guy that built the pole. Like, this is crazy. No one gets that opportunity.
It's awesome. I mean, I'm very fortunate because I've had that experience in my other career as well, where I would say, oh, hey, guess what? Today I fit an Olympic medalist for shoes. And they're like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. So when Perdita Felician was in town,
Yeah.
you know, so, you know,
Great Illinois runner.
oh, great Illinois runner, great Canadian runner. She's just a great person, you know, and so to be able to fit her with shoes. And I always lobbied. I said, now, Perdita, if you ever need anybody to be your block holder, I would be very honored. She never took me up on that.
You're qualified for that job. Like that, I can do that.
I think I could
Perdita.
do that.
Perdita, I know you listen. Rob just wants to help. He's just a servant leader. He just wants to give. Just let him help you out here. If I see you, well, she's retired now, but if I see you in the Olympics holding blocks because Perdita has the connections, I'll know that really I made it happen through the podcast.
That's right. I would even settle for a signed autograph of her book.
There you go. Oh, she has a book.
She's come out with a book in the last year. So
about.
I think it's about a combination of her career and then now as an athlete and as a broadcaster and now as a mother.
Yeah. She didn't do bobsledding, did she?
She did not.
We've had several Illinois women's track athletes.
Yeah,
bobsled,
Aja Evans is, I think, the current U of I alum that's on a bobsled team for the U.S.
And while that's super unique, you know what I consider the most unique thing about her? I think it's her freshman year in the indoor Big Ten. She was finalist in the 60 and the shot put.
Yes,
which I thought was so cool. And then when you hear she went on to become an Olympic bobsledder, and I believe she's the only one who's won a medal in both the summer and I may get that wrong.
That I'm not sure about that statistic.
I know it was a bobsledder track that maybe it was Lolo. No, Lolo didn't get a medal anyway. But it makes sense that she'd go on to be a bobsledder. It's like, oh man, she was fast enough to make the Big Ten 60 and strong enough to make the Big Ten final in the shot as well. Come on, man, that seems like a bobsledder.
Pretty unique athlete.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, speaking of great athletes like Perdita and Naja and many others, you know, one of the things that we do here that is really special and unique for us is our NCAA sponsorship. So we get to equip every NCAA Division I, Division II, Division III indoor and outdoor championship with brand new, the biggest and the brightest Gill Athletics equipment. This year, you're taking over our D2 efforts. Are you excited? Nervous?
Oh, well, both. Yeah. But I mean, I am excited. And, you know, I've gotten to do my site visit for the indoor facility. Staff out there is phenomenal. Their track is great. I'm really looking forward to that event and helping them put on an excellent meet.
And that was in Virginia Beach. Have you seen an indoor facility like that before in your life?
It's really nice.
It is.
I mean, it solves some of the problems that some of the other facilities have when you've got line of sight issues and things. I mean, it was a facility that was built for track, not retrofit for track.
Yeah.
And it makes a big difference.
It's amazing. And I can't wait for them to host. In March. They're going to do a bang up job. They already have some of the bigger meets and some pretty high profile meets there in the facility. So this would be just another feather in their cap.
Oh, absolutely. Before the NCAA's move in, they're having the AAU championships.
That's
so,
right.
you know, so they know they're no stranger to big meets.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to the most at D2 indoors there in Virginia Beach?
Well, I mean, I think once all the equipment's set up and to see that all that in its splendor is going to be awesome, but then to see the athletes and all the drama that unfolds throughout the week of the meet.
Have you been to a D2 indoor?
No, I have not.
You know, I hadn't either until I came to Gill. And, you know, I had I don't know if I want to call it typical, I'll call it Mike Cunningham typical bias because, I was a Division I coach and Power 5 and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, D2, it's going to be good, but, you know, there'll be an occasionally good athlete or performance. Man, I was blown away. You hit the nail on the head when you said the drama of the meet, you know, how the meet shakes out to who's going to be the winner on the men and women's side. It was one of the more, I've been to several now, and they have all been some of the more interesting meets I've been to see how the team shakes out. And brother, I was wrong when I said one or two good athletes performances. It's across the board. Like, I'm not sure I could coach in D2 and be successful. That's how good that meet is.
Well, and you know, that's with a day in the life, you know, you get to interact with some of those coaches and there's nothing about their preparation or their experience or their attitude that separates them from D1. those, I mean, except for they may have a chip on their shoulder because some people don't respect D2.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only difference.
Yeah. I agree. Now having known coaches across the spectrum, NAI, AD3, JUCO, et cetera, all the way up to D1, there is no difference. You're exactly right. It's different. It's what's on their shirt. That's what's different. They're out there working just as hard as any quote unquote big time D1 or however you want to put that, right? They're putting in as many hours. They care as much. I mean, it's really the only difference is what's on their shirt and what NCAA dictates is D1, D2, D3, and so the different rules and such like that. But they get after it as coaches in the Division II NCAA world, man. It's quite amazing. You're going to enjoy that meet. I can't wait. I get to share it with you this year. So
it's going to be awesome.
I can't wait. And I recently, because I was out there, I did your site visit for Colorado State Pueblo as well. We need to talk about that, by the way. But that is going to be phenomenal. And you've actually been in Pueblo before.
Well, I've been to the Springs. I haven't been quite down to Pueblo.
You've been to Colorado Springs?
Yes.
Oh, so you were like 45 minutes to an hour, just shy of it. Okay. Another beautiful area, because I did visit UCCS, University of Colorado Springs, and the Air Force Academy for the first time. Oh, man, Air Force Academy.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. I was blown away. Thank you, Scotty Steffen, for that tour. It was amazing. And UCCS's facility is top notch. I'll have a bunch of pictures coming up here on Twitter. We're so blessed and humbled. Their new indoor facility they got about 4 years ago. Chose all Gill. I mean,
Nice.
it's beautiful. It's quite amazing. The way where it sits as well, kind of sits up a little bit, not entirely in the mountains, but it kind of sits up. So you kind of oversee you can see the city and stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
It's pretty sweet. And you know me well enough. They had a Raising Cane's. Eventually
we're gonna get one here too.
I know. I'm so excited. I'm gonna go broke, but I'm so excited. I love Raising Cane's. So yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun, man. And it's a big responsibility, to be one of the on-site people at an NCAA championships, and you're gonna get to meet some of just the most amazing people who choose to be track coaches on that level, man. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to meet the coaches. I know that, with the site visit in Virginia Beach and the phone conversation that I've had with CSU Pueblo, they've got really great people on the ground there and facilities. And so the meet should be awesome.
Yeah, the facility, I don't remember her exact title, facility director, but definitely the liaison of facilities for the NCAA was a shot putter for Pueblo. So she, first of all, cares, especially about the throws, but she knows it. So they've got some great plans there for spectators and presentation and student athlete experience for the throws and the rest of the meet itself. It's going to be cool, man. I'm excited about it. That's for sure. Well, Rob, as we wrap up here today, one of the things I probably should have asked you from the very get-go for anybody who's watching us on YouTube right now is, so what's up with BYU? Do you have a BYU shirt on?
That's an interesting story, but I've grown up in Illinois, been an Illinois fan all of my life, and then it just kind of was a cyclical pattern where they were close but not. It's almost like the Cubs, wait till next year, and so it got to be a little frustrating. And then in one of our moves along the way, my wife was responsible for consolidating all of our electronics, the phone, the internet, the television, and they said, do you want any sports packages? And she said, oh, how much? And she said, oh no, we don't want that. So when we first started, when we first got the service, then they tease you with some months of like Big Ten Network, or they're like, oh, good, we don't need it. It's already on there, And then when that went away, the only sports that I could find on the TV that wasn't like the game of the week on ABC, Fox, whatever, was BYU.
Really?
And so then I thought, well, I'll watch and see. And so that they had a pretty good couple players on their basketball team. They were, then they were independent. Now they're getting ready to join a conference. But, for football, they wouldn't shy away from any competition. And so it was kind of fun to watch. And they were kind of on the upswing. And then, as it turns out, all teams kind of are on the same way. They're close, but not there. And then they're there, and then they're not there, So not a lot different than Illinois.
Heartbreak.
Exactly.
Becoming a BYU Cougar fan.
But then, also the other thing, and you've had her on your podcast, I'm really fascinated with Diljit and the way she coaches,
yes.
And Ed Eyestone, and the program that they have out there on the distance side is phenomenal.
Yeah, Mark Robertson, who's the alum, Nick Arrhenius that's coaching their throws. They do a fantastic job. Have you had a chance to be on campus?
No, I'd love to. It looks like it would be a beautiful facility.
Oh, it's well, I don't want to say life changing. That seems a little bit hyperbolic, but it was unbelievable. I did a tour through Utah and got to visit Southern Utah and Weber and University of Utah, Utah State, and of course BYU. And it's hard to describe. I mean, it feels like, you can see the mountains right there, but they're so close, specifically on BYU's campus. It feels like if you just reached out, like you would touch the mountain. It was pretty special. Great facilities there. Again, great. Again, so humble they choose a majority of Gill Athletics equipment there. They do an amazing job. And you mentioned one of my all-time favorite people, Diljeet Taylor. We had her on the podcast. She's actually, I think she's our third most popular podcast we've done. So this is like number, what are we on? 100 and, are you 190, 189? Some people are laughing right now because they're looking at their podcast apps going, it's right here, dummy. I lose count, all right? I'm from Alabama. It's hard to count, all right? But we're getting close to 200 amazing coaches from around the world. And Diljeet is sitting pretty at number 3, man. And it's well-deserved. If you haven't heard her podcast, you've got to, we're wrapping up here today. Once we finish up here, whatever app you're using right now, just search Diljeet Taylor, maybe BYU. I probably spelled it out, probably said Brigham Young, and Gill Athletics. That'll bring up her episode. You've got to listen to it. It's phenomenal, and she's phenomenal. It's quite amazing. Well, Rob, as we wrap up today, man, what are you looking forward to most in the 2023 season?
Well, I think just, 2 successful NCAA nationals. I think it's going to be awesome to be part of it, to get, like I say, to see the meets and see the athletes and the coaches. And then, those 2 facilities are both top notch and have, a lot of Gill equipment, which just is awesome to see in use in its native habitat, instead of back there in the factory getting made or getting on a truck getting shipped somewhere.
That's right. That's true. It's so funny. Everything gets made right here, and yet we rarely see. It just happens. I mean, again, these guys and gals on the other side, man, they do just a phenomenal job. So it is kind of special and precious when we actually get to see it in the wild. I love it, man. Well, Rob, I'm super excited. One of the things that I love about you is your organization. You mentioned when I asked you about what it was about working in a running shoe industry, and the first thing you said was, "Oh, it's about customer service. I've got to help this person, not just sell them a pair of shoes. I'm trying to help them get the right pair of shoes at the right time for them." And it's been awesome to see how you put that learning experience over 20 years plus into what you do here at Gill Athletics. I hear you on the phone with customers. I hear you on the phone with our dealer network, the industry's best dealer network we have out there. And you are so caring and so turn over the rock type of attitude. Like, you don't let anything, like if there's something important, like, hey, Mrs. Customer, hey, Mr. Dealer, Mrs. Dealer, have you thought, what are your thoughts here? You're always asking really good questions to help unlock what is the right size pit, what is the right vaulting pole, and if I don't know it, let me use my team to help out. You just do a phenomenal job serving coaches across the country, and I'm just so proud to have you as a teammate. I really am, man. I've seen you, it's hard to say blossom over a year and a half because you already came with such a great background. It's like some of our, our right out of college teammates that we have, but you have certainly pulled all this amazing collection of experiences you've had into an amazing profession and career here serving coaches around the country, man. I'm just so proud of you. So proud to be your teammate. We're going to go to Texas here soon. I just love traveling with you. We're going to get good barbecue again. But I can't say it enough, man. We're so lucky and blessed to have you here as part of our Gill Athletics team. Our coaches in the high school and collegiate level are so lucky to have you here. You're one of the guys out there that maybe not every coach has talked to or knows about, but doesn't understand how much of your influence is pushed towards them to help them to, I'm going to repeat exactly what you said earlier, so that they don't have to worry about equipment. Get the right equipment and the best equipment and go do what you love to do. And that's coach young people, man. And so you're phenomenal at it. And again, we're just so lucky to have you here at Gill Athletics.
I'm glad for the opportunity to do it. It's fulfilling to be able to help people and know that, that you're making a difference in providing the equipment for the kids so that they can have a quality experience. And then who knows where that track career will take them. And it started out with wherever they started with some, hopefully some good equipment, and they blossom and move on from there.
That's it, man. If you you got to get to know this guy. So obviously, thank you for listening today and hearing his story. But if you're going to be in Virginia Beach for the indoor nationals for Division II, or Pueblo for the outdoor Division II nationals, find Robb. He'll be the Gill guy. He won't have
I won't have a Y on it.
No, he will not. I'll make sure. I was just like, Robb, you can't do that. He'll have his Gill athletic shirt on. Go up. He's so good and personable. Just walk up and introduce yourself and just say, hey, I heard you on the podcast, or you helped my dealer and us pick out the right starting blocks or what have you. But get to know this guy in person. You'll be better for it. He'll be better for it. And we'll be an even better team as we continue to work for your program where you're at there in Division II. So Robb, thank you again, man. And thank you guys and gals for listening. This is a wrap. Robb was my anchor. You are officially the last guest of 2022.
So 2022 podcast is over and season 3 is done.
We're out.
We're out.
So because this is the last episode, and I can't remember if at this point I've put this on Twitter, I'm going to make the announcement of who our guest number 1 for season 4 is. I like to kick off each season with just like #legendary. Okay. Now I don't know from your background if you'll know this name, but you're a track guy, so you will know this name. Does the name Dan Paff mean anything to you?
Wow, that's gonna be your guest.
That's January 2nd. So 1 week from today, January 2nd, Dan Paff, the legendary Dan Paff, is our guest for kicking off season 4 of the Gill Athletics Connections podcast.
Well, that's gonna be awesome. Put it on your calendar. So
that's it, man. I'm telling you. And let me tell you, I've already conducted the interview. It's everything you can think of. He drops every. You think Coach Buss had some sayings? Let me tell you what, Dan Paff has got some sayings, and they don't have Tinkle in the Whiskey in it at all, anywhere at all. So join us next week. We'll have Dan Paff, and I've got an amazing crew we've already got lined up for season 4. We're going to keep doing this as long as people listen. 52 coaches a year we're going to bring straight to you and hopefully make you better, and we'll continue to uplift and honor coaches around this country. So Robb, thank you for joining us.
All right, Mike. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys. Have a great holiday season.